Yes, there would. Oh, right. I was wondering what you guys are laughing at. Okay. Don't worry, this will make sense in a minute. So, I think thus far everything I've said, most of the anarcho-capitalists would agree with that, with this stuff. Here, this is my own particular idiosyncratic take, so I just want you to be aware of that you can be an anarchist and disagree or have different views of things. The way I picture law enforcement working in a modern, westernized, capitalistic society is that for most people, especially the wealthier they were, if they live in a suburban community where people kind of know each other especially, I think one of the ways that you would supplement just the stuff I talked about before, about just randomly interacting with people and then taking your disputes to a judge, I think that would all be supplemented by people sort of unilaterally making pledges to the community at large, saying, if I agree, I agree that if I'm convicted of any of these types of offenses, I will pay out such and such in terms of monetary penalties. And then I'm a member of this larger group with financial resources, so I'm good for it. And at first that might sound odd to you, but that's what we do with driving right now, and that's what surgeons do. Right? So when you drive around right now, if you're insured, you get into a car accident. If you're at fault, okay, you owe the other person. Let's say you owe them $500,000. Like if you kill somebody, you can say, well, gee, I don't have $500,000, but you're insured, and so your insurance company pays them, even though you were at fault. You could say the insurance company, they didn't do it, but that's the point. You pay premiums to them, partly not only because your car might get totaled and you need to get it fixed, but also if you cause an accident and are at fault, you're not going to have the money to pay that huge settlement. The same thing, a surgeon, if the surgeon screws up and kills somebody on the operating table, and especially if it's concluded that they did something really bad, it wasn't just, that it was a tough operation, but no, they botched it and are legally responsible for killing that person. You say, oh, I owe the estate $1 million. Well, the surgeon might not have it, but that's what they have malpractice insurance for. Okay, so I'm saying take that logic and extend it. I'm saying I think it's possible that in a society, at least a certain type of society, you might see things like that where I apply for a job somewhere and they say, well, what association are you a part of? And then if I tell them that they could trust it, they say, okay, because what's happening is this group that I'm a part of vouches for me. And they say, you hire him, and then one day you show up to work and all your inventory's been cleaned out and Bob's in Mexico drinking tequila shots with all your stuff. Well, then we will pay you for it because we had been vouching for him, and so we'll do that, and then maybe we'll go get Bob and recover the stuff. But that company's made whole right away by the association of which I was a part. So why do they do that? Because I pay them dues or premiums or whatever you want to call it. And of course, they're only going to let me in if they look at my history and see that, okay, I don't have a violent history or such and such. Just like a life insurance company is going to charge different premiums to people, or some people they're not going to insure at all if they have a brain tumor and things like that. Whereas if they're a smoker, they'll charge a higher premium, still give them a policy. But if they have a brain tumor and skydive every Tuesday, they might say, we're not giving you a policy at all because that's just so risky. So the same token here, I think you would see that kind of mechanism play out to supplement the stuff I was talking about earlier. So now, just keep that logic going through. So let's say the really crazy cases, like some guy, axe murder or something like that. And then they catch the guy, they capture him, he's still alive. They take him, the judges rule and say, yeah, this guy, he killed 16 people with an axe. That's kind of unusual. What do you have to say for yourself? And he explains and says, well, so what do we do with this person? And I'm saying I think there would be a role for companies that would offer things, places, buildings where people like that could not just be out in the community, because no association would vouch for that person. No one's going to say, sure, I promise that if this person does something criminal, we'll pay you for it, because they said this guy just killed 16 people with an axe. This guy's crazy. We can't do that. So what do you do? Well, a company might say, hey, we will vouch for him, but only if we, take him into our possession and he stays in this building, and we have, cameras and things like that, and we can keep him here. And that person, you'd say, well, why would the point is the person would agree to it, though, because you could explain to them, no, you're not going to be able to walk around freely because the owners of the private roads and the malls and the people who have businesses, they're not going to let you onto their property. That you're a pariah right now. You have this outstanding settlement against you. You killed these 16 people, and the judge has ruled that you owe their estates $1 million apiece, something like that. So what are you going to do? The point is, the person, could you say come into this area and then you can work from here. Maybe the person is a brilliant engineer or something. He can't just be out free, but maybe having a controlled environment doing that. So the reason I'm saying it's like a hotel is these things would be competing for each other. If there is a market for that, if there are some criminals that are just really antisocial enough that they just can't be out, I think the humane market solution might be that companies would build these things. And the reason I'm depicting it as the hotel is that they would try to attract them, because the point is the landowners would say, get off my property. So they would have, they wouldn't be able to stand anywhere. They would end up in the ocean and drown, except these people say, you can come onto our property if you abide by these rules. We're going to search you, of course, before you get here, make sure you don't have any shivs on you or anything like that. We're going to, maybe shave your head, and you got to do all these things, wear this jumpsuit and whatever, and submit to what you think are humiliating procedures. But those are the rules if you want to come here. But other than that, it's not going to be that they're going to, the stuff that happens in prison right now, none of that would happen because people would just choose a different prison, right? So yes, you would be in there and you would be unfree to leave, but the point is the guards wouldn't be sadistic and you wouldn't be doing crazy things like making license plates, and you also wouldn't be probably, getting into talking to other criminals and then learning how to do stuff and then getting out later and then committing worse crimes, which is what happens right now in the criminal justice system. All right, so I am calling it a hotel, but of course, the people that are vouching for you, so there's a group saying, okay, yeah, we'll vouch for this person, but you say, but you got to come in here. They're going to want to make sure the person doesn't get out. So it's going to be an odd sort of hotel. It's going to be like the Hotel California when you get in there. Okay, so the point is that you see, like it's inefficient, like to execute somebody from a purely utilitarian, pragmatic sense. If the person, it could be productive and could be rehabilitated, then that's kind of a waste. And so I think in a market society, a free society, over time, even if it's true that the victims' families had the legal right to kill the person, I think the person might be able to buy that off of them. Like there could be mutually voluntary arrangements or agreements where the person says, yeah, you have the right to kill me right now because I killed your father or something, and you're the legal heir of his estate. You have the moral right to kill me because I did that. But how about I go to this thing and work 20 years? Let's say the guy's let's say he's 50. I'm probably going to live another 50 years. What if I go here and I give you 80% of my income? How do you feel about that? And then I think over time that would become the socially acceptable response. So yes, you could say, no, I want this person dead if you wanted to. That would be your legal right. But I think over time, more and more people would view that as sort of sadistic and, that's not going to bring your dad back. Why don't you just let bygones be bygones? And I think in that sort of society, you would see less crime in the long run because, I don't want to sound cliched, but the cycle of violence would be minimized. That would be teaching, kids would see in our very civilized society, even when someone goes crazy and kills people with an axe, what do? Well, we contain him so he can't hurt anybody else. And there wouldn't ever be prison breaks from these things because these would be, these people would be on the line if someone escaped. It's not like the politicians who really don't suffer if someone breaks out of a prison that's in their jurisdiction. And then so we contain them, and then they're productive, and they probably would be rehabilitated, or there would be a much better chance of rehabilitating the people there, especially if it was just, they were on drugs or something. If there was some issue going on when they did all that stuff, there's a much better chance that they would be rehabilitated through that process legitimately. And then even there, when you talk about parole, how would parole work? Well, if people run that association said, okay, we actually think this person's reformed, he's expressed genuine contrition or whatever, they might then say, okay, we'll let him go out. We are the association vouching for him, and they would charge much higher premiums, and they're on the hook. If he does go back and go back to his criminal past, or criminal ways, then they're paying for it. So there would be the possibility of parole. I think, think through the logic of what would get you in prison in the first place, how would you get out, is when people thought, yeah, I'm willing to vouch for you so you can go get back among society. But again, the incentives would be there for them to make the right decision. Whereas now, the people on the prison parole boards who make decisions. If they're wrong and the person goes out and kills somebody, that doesn't mean they lose $100,000 next year, right? It just means, they might feel bad. But the point is here, if you screw up and vouch for someone who actually goes back and falls into recidivism, then you financially lose, or your company does. All right, well, let's start talking about the real fun stuff, about blowing things up. How would what we think of as military defense, how would that work?
Yeah, it's interesting because what it then leads to is there's a lot of quantitative easing that goes on, and to avoid that debasement, I think that you're directionally correct. Right now, the strategy has been let's buy every credit product we possibly can stuff into our mandate, right? And they're doing everything from treasuries, mortgage-backed securities, corporate credit, all the way down the line. It then leads to like, well, what else can we buy? And obviously, equities is kind of this like religious topic that once you step across that line, I think there's a lot of people that start yelling and screaming.